Can everybody hear me? Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so excited that you're here with us today in the MLK afternoon workshops. This is our second session for the day. For those of you who have attended the first session, I'm really glad that you decided to stay along with us for this second portion. We have an amazing session planned for you today. Gen C, Students of Color in Today's Education. This is by Quartel Roberson. He goes by Q, our very distinguished Viterbo alum who graduated from Viterbo as well, and he's doing some amazing work in the community, working with Black youth, with the Crosse School District. He's a Cultural Liaison, and he holds many other titles. He's amazing if you haven't heard of him yet. He has with him a student representation. We've got our student panelists with us today. So first, let's give them an applause and make them feel a little comfortable that they're here. We have with us Naziah McLaurin. We have Nick Williams, Antoine Hardy, and Ali Jacobson Bay. Let's give them another applause. Jackson Bay. All right, I'm going to give it up to Q.
Y'all can hear me? I might not use it the whole time, but unless you need it for that. But welcome, thank you. I appreciate y'all all coming in. Give yourselves a round of applause, please, for taking your time out your day. Obviously, we know today is a wonderful day, right? We celebrate a person, but not just that person, but what he stood for. I take this day off every year, even before they made it a holiday, just because we support other amazing people. But this movement that we call the Civil Rights Movement was largely led by him, but not only him, but so everybody that was a part of that and represents that needs to be celebrated, right? And I'm glad our nation finally decided to do that. So, but my name is Q Roberson. I am the Cultural Liaison for the School District of La Crosse right now. I taught at Central for 6 years, teaching at-risk students in the La Crosse Roads program. Love the job, but now I get to get out into the middle schools and work with even more kids and all over the district. Been doing this work for only a year, but it's a lifetime thing, right? Not just because I got this job did it become something that I just do as a person. I was already doing it. So it was an easy no-brainer when I asked my wife, should I switch jobs? Even though after she just got the job at Central, so we were working together, and then I left. It made it seem bad. But it wasn't that bad. And so during this job, I am responsible for working with students that identify Black and Latinx, and just being an educator in general, right? I get to see a lot of things, right? Educators are the heart and soul of our nation. Whether you believe that or not, it's the truth. Just these people, educators like myself and others that are in the building, spend their days, right, working with other people's kids, and it is important because they set the foundation for people's kids, starting very young. And obviously the parents are important. They have them for those few years, and then they send them off to us, and then we are required to teach them, to mold them, to help them, to nurture them, and all of these things, and that's why I went into education. As a Black man growing up in Rockford, Illinois, and then I moved here as a sophomore, there's a lot of things that I went through in my life that would be called the struggle, right? I grew up in the projects in Rockford and government housing, so growing up in poverty, a lot of people struggling where I came from, but all in all, we had to fight a little more. And then we moved to a community like this, from a predominantly Black community to a predominantly white community. There was a lot of struggles that and a lot of challenges that I faced, similar to what these students face. Some of them were born and raised here, but still face challenges because of the color of their skin, right? Because of what they look like, because of how they sound or talk, okay? Because of some of the things they do may not match what society says is okay. And we know that these newer students, what we're calling Gen Zs, I'm going to tell you right now, you couldn't ask me what all that means, millennials, Gen Zs. I wouldn't know what age group, which bracket, or what that would be. But this Gen Z group is obviously facing some really tough challenges. I think our nation and our world in general goes in these cycles, right? We have these pockets where it seems to be more beautiful, seems to be nicer, and everything like that. But then there's these times where we know are really bad, right? Slavery, civil rights movement, Holocaust. And I can name a lot of different eras and times where it was really bad. Gen Z may not be going through a Holocaust or a civil rights movement, even though it's a continual thing. It's always the movement for us. But they face some tough challenges in our educational system, in their lives, in their community, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. That's okay? Y'all here for that? I see some heads shaking. I like voices though. I coach basketball too, and I like people when they talk back to me. All right, I gotta try to work this clicker, wherever it is. Okay, I do a lot of videos and I like to use a lot of quotes when I do presentations, right? This quote says, "Watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, because it becomes your character. And watch your character because it becomes your destiny." Some of the simplest words in this quote that mean a lot. And I say that because everything started with a simple thought. Just thinking something can become your destiny, whether good or bad, right? The thought of being so cruel to people because of the way they looked turned into actions that were really bad, right? But it started with a thought. And I think the way our world works, this is a very meaningful quote. But everything starts with thoughts. For you young people in here, right? You college students, you in middle school yet? Elementary? You in? Oh, I know your sister though. So, it just starts with that simple thought process. You think positively, you tend to want to do positive things. You think negatively, you tend to want to do negative things. And it just builds and builds and builds until your character determines your destiny. The good thing is character is something we can work at, right? It's something that we can build on. It's something that we can adjust. If your personality is bad, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. You can't really work on that. You develop that about the age of 7. We just know who you are. I know my daughter's going to be sassy her whole life because that's just who she is. That's her personality. But her character is going to be great because, one, as a good father, I'm going to teach her and nurture her into being a good person. This video, you're going to make me do that. I'm going to see if I can do this. I like to do videos too because videos hit hard and then we like to talk about them. Hopefully it works. You got me in trying to use clickers. Uh-oh. Some assistance. There we go. Thank you. Yep, come on back up. You thought you was just going to be able to sit there? Okay. Video about institutional racism, right? We know that in our school system, we are trying to make it better. We've been working for years and years and years to make things better, to make things a little bit more equitable, to be more inclusive. But there's still a lot of work to be done, okay? When we talk about institutional racism, talk about even young kids are seeing things and noticing what's going on in our nation. And we can't fix the problem or the issues that are going on until we attack and try to change the system, okay? Because we know that things, okay, aren't as equitable as they need to be, right? And like I said, I grew up in predominantly black schools, but then transferred to all white schools here in La Crosse. And times have changed. There's a lot more black students here than when I got here. I think when I was here at Central High School, I feel like there was about 8 of us. I think there was more. But now there's, several hundred that go to our high schools. So you ain't figured it out yet?
We're working on it.
You were supposed to do this before I got here. But all in all, like, sorry, crack a lot of jokes sometimes, and no, I'm not trying to be mean to people. I think it's my character. It's all coming from a good place, though. But we know that, when students like us and students like this walk through our school halls, that they are yearning to learn just like everybody else, right? But we know that we hate to say this, but race plays a huge factor in our success. So when you walk through your schools, right, because one of the issues students face right now is in communities like this especially, there's not a lot of educators that look like them. There's not a lot of people in powerful positions that look like them. And so if the people that you are seeing, especially because they're seeing a lot right now, which is another problem for the Gen Zs, right, is that they have access to everything and anything and almost too much, because they can just look at their phones and see a video of everything in the world. But if you don't directly see those people in your community doing the work, there's a struggle. Thank you, ma'am. You gonna be up here to do the rest of them too? Because I got a couple of them. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Should I play it?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Marley Dias. I'm 11 years old. A lot of grown-ups think that opportunities exist for all kids, and all we need to do is apply ourselves. But I know that's just not true. It shouldn't matter if you live in the city or suburbs, on a farm or a reservation, or what your zip code may be, but it does. There's still rules to keep our schools separate and unequal. Why? We spend a lot of time talking about whether what someone says or does is racist, but that's not enough. You not liking me for the color of my skin is not the only thing that can affect my chances for success. I'm talking about the built-in barriers that keep me and other kids from reaching our full potential. It's all around us. We might not recognize it, even when it's right under our noses. Like, remember that time I had to start a campaign just to get books in my library about kids who look like me? Do you care enough to look closer, to talk to each other, to your students, to your communities? We've got to change the dialogue. Because when we do, you'll be amazed by all we can accomplish. I'm looking at you.
Simple as video, but so effective. I think this young lady, right, used words that aren't very big, and vocabulary is not very big, but they're so meaningful, right? When we talk about racism, it doesn't have to be like raw, just right in your face, like it's staring at you and it's hitting you in the eye and you walk around hurting from it. It's these little things that mean a little bit more. The rules and regulation that are being placed on our students with the policies that are there make sense. But in the same token, they're not thinking about what those things mean sometimes. They're not thinking about the background or history of these students. So in my day, right, sometimes it was just out there. I moved to La Crosse and it was like, ooh, I see the N-word for the first time written on the bathroom stalls all over the place. Like, it's just there. For these students, the Gen Z students, right, it's not just right there in their face. It's hitting. It's underneath the mask, which makes it even harder. The zero tolerance policies. They may not be aimed to hurt black students, but they do, right? And we can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, but before we do them, we must think about what is this going to mean for all students, right? And we need to sit down at the table together and make sure that what we're putting in place makes sense so that everybody can be successful, because it's still holding some people back. And so while these students aren't maybe facing as much, because the Gen Z generation is probably the most multicultural generation we've had. We're growing and growing and becoming a more multicultural nation, right? Pretty soon, white folks in here, I'm sorry, Hispanics are going to have a higher population, maybe. They're getting there. It's growing and growing. I don't think they'll get there, but they might. The population of Hispanic folks is growing in our country. Some of us might say, well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but most of them are coming here for valid reasons, right? Because where they live is not an equitable living status for them. But these students that are going through this underground, hidden racism is causing them to want to fight back or struggle, and then they get in trouble for that, right? That's a big issue in our system today, okay? So what are some trends that are going on with this generation, okay? And so I got with this group, and we came up with some things that are going on, right? One, positive and negative, and some of these are both, right? One, social media, number one, right? TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else is out there that I don't even know about that y'all using, Be Reals and all this stuff, like they're just doing the most, okay? Both positive and negative to me, right? The fact that these students can be connected to anybody in the world is a good thing, as long as they connect them with the right folks. The fact that they spend too much time on it and wasting their days and not really learning a lot from it is the negative part, right? Spending 4 or 5 hours sitting watching TikToks. We got elementary school kids doing TikTok challenges right now in our schools, struggling, and it's causing a lot of issues. Now, these high school students are a little bit smarter. I chose a wise group of good students that are making good decisions, that are part of programs that are successful and helping them become successful, but they would admit that they struggled with spending multiple hours on social media, which is then hurting us, because some of that stuff is just dumb. I'm just gonna keep it real. It's dumb. It's just dumb videos that you're watching. It's making me dumb. It's like SpongeBob. I don't know if anybody, hopefully none of y'all watch SpongeBob or SpongeBob film. You're not a SpongeBob fan, are you? Fan? Okay, not anymore. But it doesn't make you think. It doesn't make you smart. It just doesn't. Okay. The other thing, a good thing is schools are noticing that these students are struggling more. Okay, students of color, students in general, so they're adding more services and programs. That's a good trend. We want that trend to continue. They're noticing that we need less power and more push, right? And I know some of these students, like Naziah, has been to the school board. She's somewhat against the SRO program, right? And not that I am. I think I see the both good and bad, but policing in schools, when it's done right, can be good. But policing in schools that is done wrong when we treating kids like adults is wrong, right? And we know that some of these students, especially our black students of this generation, are seeing more and more of that. Working jobs while balancing school. We have more and more kids that work jobs. I coach basketball, and then my girls are in basketball. They're going to school, and I got like at least out of 12 of my players, there's 7 or 8 of them that have a job. Same with these students. 3 of them work a job. Ali, you're going to need to get a job, bro. Oh, you got a job. All 4 of them have a job. I thought you told me you ain't had no job, bro. Come on. So all of them working jobs while trying to balance school, sports, other clubs, activities, and they're all here mentors as well in the elementary school. Because I run a program called Ujima, which I'll get to a little later. But more community organizations. Crosse right now, which is a positive for us, has more community organizations for these students, Gen Z in particular, but black students as well. We have Black Leaders Acquiring Collective Knowledge, Hope Restorers, who some of you just got the chance to see, doing amazing work, okay? Good Fight, another program that's doing amazing work, okay? So just all these programs that they never had when I was here are helping these students out. Pause for the next 2 because these are some of the negative things, right? There's more depression and anxiety that is going on throughout our nation. Students in this age group or bracket, right, are dealing with adult-like things that maybe I dealt with as a kid but didn't really see it that way, but we know they are, and maybe it's because I'm an adult, I see it that way. Let me think about that one. But they're dealing with more numbers, more higher numbers, and mental health, obviously, kids are struggling more, right? And it's partly because of the first one, social media, because of what they're seeing and going through is hurting them and not helping them heal. And then racial trauma. We were meeting about this even outside before the meeting and talking about racial trauma and how as a kid, I only saw what was going on in my neighborhood. I saw what was going on right there in my project, facility, or community, and that's it. If I watched the news, if I did, maybe, probably didn't watch it that much. But now with the access to social media, videos, all of this stuff, they're seeing all this stuff that's happening all over the world. So you can just grab your phone, click on an app, and you can see a video of the same thing happening in Chicago, that's happening in New York, that's happening in Ghana, that's happening in China, that's happening in Germany, that's happening all over the place. And we know that right now, because of the cameras, which is good, beautiful thing, that we do have access to that, because some of that stuff was going unnoticed. Now, but it's still causing a big problem for these students, because seeing it in a couple of these, especially boys here, talked about how we have to train these young men to prepare for getting pulled over by the police. And I love officers. I got a couple kids that I taught in high school that have became officers. I'm for the police. I am all about it, if done right. But for our young men here, that we have to educate them on how to handle a police stop, and they have to be way more cautious than any other being or race in this world, is kind of a travesty, right? And so these young students are dealing with that a lot more. It feels like we're back in the 1950s, 20s, 40s again with this regeneration of this. I gotta keep pulling out this thing. I'm about to get this to you. So there's some good, some bad, and some ugly with this, right? Good and bad and ugly, right, Twan? Yes. So the good is that this generation and this group of people in particular are more collaborative, right? They're doing more work together. People are trying to join forces. People are creating programs that help them do more together, whether that's with each other or that's with outside people outside their race. Great, 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 great stuff. I think that's beautiful that we're trying to do that, okay? They're more self-efficient, self-reliant, okay? They're working jobs, okay? They're having to do this stuff sometimes because, you know, sometimes people are struggling and the families are struggling. Not that this group is. I think they're just good kids and want to work, want to help out, okay? Want to take care of themselves, which makes them more self-reliant, okay? More pragmatic, right? Having to face issues, real-life issues, and they're dealing with them. They're trying to handle it. There's more things out there for them to get into, whether that's counseling or something like that, and they're seeking it out themselves a little bit more. Willingness to speak out against injustice. We know that some of these students are leading marches because they feel so bad about what's going on. They are getting out there and talking about it. They're not afraid to put themselves on the camera, on the stage, in the streets to talk about that thing. And I think talk about this stuff, and that's good. They're globally connected. I said this about social media. They're more globally connected. I can know somebody in every country in the world just by social media and all that stuff like that, as long as I handle it right. And like I said, the Gen Z group is the most multicultural generation we've had that is feel connected. But the weaknesses, or areas of growth, we can call them, are the misuse of technology. Oh my goodness, I'm so sick of dealing with that. I deal with it every day, especially in the middle schools. They might be the worst, but we also have elementary school kids that are misusing technology and struggling with it. Spending more time on social media in general, instead of talking to each other, instead of playing football games on your phone, how about you go play outside, right? We did that all the time for you people that are my age. I don't know how old some of you are. Some of you are young, freshmen in college. I'm a little older. And so we went outside, they don't, okay? They feel more entitled too, though. They feel like you owe them something. I know you think that, coach. Your players, they feel like they owe you something. You're supposed to just give it to them. I show up to everything I'm supposed to start. No, you ain't. You ain't working that hard, right? So this generation has that weakness where they feel like everything is owed to them. It's not a good thing, because we grew up having to work hard for what we got, okay? Relationships. Oh, Lord. Pardon my French. Didn't mean to disrespect nobody if I did. Okay, but come on now. Relationships, dealing with fake relationships because they are connected, they aren't real, and they don't know how to maintain relationships. They don't know how to keep it sustainable because they don't know how to talk to each other as much or communicate. So we see that quite a bit, and so that is one of the major things to me that I consider the ugly, because we know that we strive and we'll do better as a nation, as a people, okay, as a collective, if we have better relationships and skills to build those relationships. Make sense? Thank you. You was listening. I like voices. You sitting here all quiet and still. I got to get y'all active in a little bit now. Come on. Okay, what can we do better? Okay, what can we do to make things better? Okay, there's a lot of things we can do, and we know that there are. So campuses, higher ed, places like Viterbo, who are starting to do better with things like this, right? But things that they can do better to make things better for these students that are dealing with the stuff they're dealing with. One, okay, invite students to your campus. Get them on campus, let them do visits, walk around with them, give them some free food, okay, free stuff, because this entitled group of kids needs free stuff to feel belonging, feel the sense of belonging, and they just do better with that. Okay, but don't just invite them on campus. Meet them where they are. Come to their spaces. Go to their schools, and not just to go and sit in the office and have students come visit you as a recruiter, but like go to their school events, go to a basketball game, go to one of their choir concerts. Going to those things will then help show them that you care about them, right? And we know that people need to feel the sense of belonging and the sense of care. So when you do that, right, you make them feel like you care about them, and that's going to say, oh, that person really came to my basketball game or came to my choir concert. They really want me to come to this school, okay? But the problem is, the next one, you got to make it more affordable for folks. College is way too much money. And then you have to pay more money because they make you take classes that you don't really need to your degree. So, don't know what to tell y'all about that one. We're going to have to do better. You younger generation, it's up to y'all to keep fighting to make college more affordable for all families, right? Because like me, growing up in poverty, I didn't know how I was going to pay for college. Some of these students are the same way. They might not be poor, they might be middle class, but they still got to figure out how are they going to pay to go to college. Now, some of these people are basketball players. They're going to end up getting a scholarship, probably to go play sports, right? But I still, in my back of my mind, how am I going to be able to afford the things I need to do, okay? Altered the path to graduation. This is a critical one for me, and I just kind of mentioned that. Making students take classes that they really don't need is not good for me. And some of these students said the same thing. Like, I heard you got to go to college, you got to take a class that you're not even going to use for your degree. Like, I took a math class in college. I was going to be a teacher for social studies. I didn't think I needed that math class. I thought the high school class that I had was high enough, but it just made me take one. And it was less than the class I had in the last one I finished in high school. It was easier than that, so why am I paying for that? So if we alter the graduation, the way we get to graduation, these students will be more apt. They say, it's too long. I got to go to college for that long just to do this? I'm doing that already. Right? I'm working that stuff already. So if we alter that path, it makes it a lot easier for kids to want to say, I can spend 3 years in college instead of 4 or 5 or more. And we know that different jobs require different stuff, but sometimes it's the classes they make you take that you shouldn't have to. Okay, change the campus culture, right? We know that if you want to get more students of color on your campuses, you have to change the culture. And that includes a lot of things. Obviously, faculty is probably the toughest one, because you got to have people that want to live in your community, that are people of color, that want to stay there. I happen to want to stay in La Crosse. My original goal was to maybe go to Rockford or go back to a place like Milwaukee or Chicago and teach in the inner city. But then I saw that many folks like us were moving to places like this. Like Naziah moved up here last year from Louisiana. She is going to be an award recipient for the Linda Laurie Award tonight, too. Yes, I had to throw that out there. And she moved up here from Louisiana, right, last year as a freshman in high school. She's now a sophomore and looking to graduate early. Doing very well in life. I told you I was going to put you on blast. But in order to get her to come to your school or want to come there, you have to change your culture on your campus. You have to make sure there's things available for students like her. And I hate that we have to set aside and do other things outside of what you just do to make it happen, but that's just the nature of the world we live in this thing we call the United States. My video don't pop up. We got another little short video. Yeah, you sitting in the back. Get to work. Get to work. Another little short video for you that talks about access to schools and things like that for you. But overall, we have to do better. We have to do more, especially for these students here to want to come to your school, because we know that 95% of the schools and colleges in our nation are predominantly white. Okay? And then some people get mad why we have HBCUs. I'm sorry, they wouldn't let us go to your schools, so we had to create our own. I'm just gonna say that, and that's why HBCUs exist. I thought you knew what you was doing. Don't, shots fired now. No, she's awesome, she's awesome. Me and her have been working together for the last year, and it's been great. Just trying to do more on the Viterbo campus. Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther King Jr. imagined a country where Black people could enjoy the full benefits of citizenship and sought policy aimed at righting the wrongs of racial injustice. It would take nearly a century after the end of slavery for the civil rights movement to translate into modern legislation, with the adoption of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Higher Education Act, and an executive order that encouraged affirmative action. But the trend toward race-conscious policies would be short-lived. Since 1978, the Supreme Court has ruled on 5 cases attempting to overturn affirmative action in higher ed. Fortunately, in every case, the Supreme Court determined that affirmative action is constitutional and that colleges are allowed to consider race so long as certain criteria are met. Still, there are several cases in the court system and other state laws that seek to end the use of race in higher education policy and practice. Currently, 8 states have bans on affirmative action. Every single one of these states saw declines in their enrollment of Black students at selected public colleges after the ban. In other words, race-conscious policies do work. In fact, the only thing that bans impede is forward progress. Because today, Black adults are less likely to have a college degree than white adults were in 1990. Affecting an entire generation of Black citizens. So why do we need race-conscious policies for higher ed? Because colorblind substitutes for race, like income, alone don't work. Completion outcomes differ for white and Black students even within the same income group. Black folks from the highest income families default on their student loans at nearly 7 times the rate of their white peers. Household net worth of Black college graduates is less than white high school dropouts. Income-based solutions will not right the wrongs of racial injustice that keep Black students from accessing and succeeding in college. Here's what will. 1. Invest state and federal dollars in the places that are most likely to serve Black students: community colleges, historically Black colleges and universities, and minority-serving institutions, which have been traditionally underfunded. 2nd, hold institutions accountable for their racial climate on campus. That includes having a diverse faculty and curricula and how the institution responds to on-campus racial incidents. Next, bans on affirmative action must be removed and colleges should use holistic admissions that include race as a factor. Upholding affirmative action and race-conscious policies matter to every single institution that's committed to creating inclusive environments. Race-conscious policies are legal and beneficial, not just for college students themselves, but as they become future leaders who shape society for America as a whole.
Putting on the show here. My mouth is getting a little dry. So a lot of stuff in that video, but short, but meaningful. Like I said, all the videos I try to choose say a lot in a short amount of time, but they're powerful, right? Those things that it talked about in the video are not as simple as they're being said, but they need to be done, right? So for students like this that sit here, right, and say, ooh, we want you to come to our college. We want you to be on our campus. But there's so many barriers in the way for them to get there that they maybe choose not to go there. Policies, that have been put in place that people are trying to fight. We know all over the nation right now, they're trying to throw out history. They're doing all type of stuff, which doesn't make these students feel better. It feels like you don't want to teach about who I am. You don't want to teach me about who I am or what I come from. You want to get rid of this, but you want me to try to be a citizen in your nation, right, where you're failing us. So when I talk to these students about that, this is how they felt. They didn't feel that sense of belonging. So why should I follow that same script that you want me to follow if you're not going to support me? It's sad that we had to create, right, policies and procedures. Okay, I don't think it's okay that we had to. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants a Civil Rights Act. Nobody wants a Higher Education Act where it makes people get a certain amount of numbers in college, because then that creates a bad thing too, right? Oh, they need 15 black students in this school, so they're going to go after 15 and they're going to stop there. But that's what happens, and that's why this group of generation knows this. They can look all this information up. I didn't look none of that stuff up. I wasn't being taught that. I didn't look it up. And so this Gen Z group now has that knowledge, and they have people to explain that to them, but also on the backside of it, explaining to them that this is why we do what we do. This is why we are coming at the system. But we also need to understand that by doing this, you're going to be more successful. Yes, you might have to be one of these numbers. But then when you become that number, you fight to seek change. Because we know if you get in a position of power, then you can fight for more change. If you're down here and they don't know who you are, then they won't listen to you. But doing it, getting that learned experience, being a part of that, sometimes helps you get a little bit further. Does that make sense? That make sense, y'all? Okay, we got 10 more people talking now. Love it, love it. Starting to wake up. Okay, what we need is shedding a little light, then I'm going to open it up for questions for these students and stuff like that. I got to use the mic. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just talk loud, so you should hear me coach. Ooh, well, some of these students in here, I coach them too. See some of my ex-students up in here. Okay, good to see y'all. Okay, what we need to do, shedding a little light. We talk about mental health, and we know that these students are dealing with a lot more mental health and the show of emotion and stuff like that. Okay, but this is what we need more of. We need more affordable housing to combat the higher numbers of homelessness. There's a lot of kids that I work with right now, especially that identify as black, that are part of this generation, families are homeless right now. And that's causing a divide. So to want them to go to college and be educated and all that is the least of their worries right now. They're worried about where they're gonna stay every night. They're staying in some of these hotels and stuff like that with a whole family of 7, and I'm working my tail off to try to find them a place, and we just don't have them available. Or landlords won't rent to them or stuff like that. And I'm not saying they're the greatest people. They may have come with some baggage and some trauma, but we need more of that if we want to make this better for this generation. We need more services to combat the higher levels of depression, anxiety that are out there, and the racial trauma. We are adding more, but we need to do more. So instead of hiring 1 or 2 new counselors, let's see if we can get the funds to hire 3, 4, 5, because we know that some of the students will speak of this in just a second when we get to there's a question I'm going to ask them about that, right, of what the issue is created around that and those numbers. Drugs and alcohol. Whew, Lord, this generation is doing all type of stuff. I know the 70s was rough. I didn't grow up in the 70s. I was born in 1980. I missed the 70s, thank goodness. For you people that went through the 70s, there was a lot of stuff going on and a lot of drugs. We are back to the 70s, and probably tenfold because the drugs are more dangerous. And we have high school students, elementary school students, vaping and doing hawk bars and all type of stuff and almost dying. We have a drug called fentanyl out there that is just tearing up our nation. It's leaving kids out here with no parents, and it's bad, so we need more of that, and I think we can do better to help this generation. And then more programs that combine students and the families, because we have programs for families. We have programs for parents. What we need to do is add more programs that combine the two, so that the families and the parents and the students can work together on all the things that are going on in this life. So for students of color, and especially these black students that I have on the stage, right, you may be going through something. If they're going through the same thing, it's tenfold just because of their race or color. Hey, not seeing white folks or people in rural areas or suburban areas or like the video said, in different areas are going through some of the similar things, but when you happen to be a person of color in our nation, it hits harder. And so for this generation of students that is having to try to combat all of these issues going on around them, like we spinning back in time, and this is why we study history, right? This is why I taught history, so that we don't repeat itself, but we know it's going to come back up. But if we equip them better to deal with it, then we will do better when it happens. Okay, now I'm going to open it up for questions for these students, because I'm tired of talking. My mouth is getting even drier and drier as I speak. And they're going to try to do their best to answer some of the questions that we have for them, so they can talk to you about what they think. Because we've talked about it. I meet with these students all the time. But I want you to hear from them. And I'm going to skip this because y'all started me late, and I just want to keep y'all on time. I want to keep it on track. Okay, so here's some questions that I thought about asking the students. If you do want to shift those questions, if you have a question and you want to throw it out, we can skip some of these questions, but I thought these were good questions to ask these students and see how they feel. One, okay, what are some challenges that you face in your school or community? Who wants to start? Naziah, thank you. Naziah, what are some things some challenges that you are facing in your school or community?
Maybe like the lack of inclusivity and like finding a space that's like perfect for me.
Good. Anybody else want to share? Nice job. Thank you. Thank you. So everybody heard that, right? She's loud and proud with it. Ooh, let me get that out. Yeah, thank you. Say it again. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your shout out. Okay. Just feeling like you belong, right? Being included in things and not feeling forced, right? Not feeling like it's something that was just made up because they're trying to get to you. Like it needs to be also real, a real life thing, a real connection. Ali got little notes. There you go. Let's go, bro.
All right, so challenges that I faced when I came from Chicago was having like culture shocks and me seeing teachers show favoritism to most students. And so I'd say really just favoritism is a challenge.
Yeah, so Ali comes from Chicago, from Illinois. Yeah, let's go. Sorry, Wisconsin, I love you now. I did not like you when I grew up. Thought Wisconsin was full of white folks, cheese, and that's it. I'm just gonna keep it real. We did not like Wisconsin and Rockford, where I'm from. I am sorry. But yeah, he talked about like, yep, and I'll get to you. Okay, he talked about like feeling that sense of community, and feeling connected. And then feeling like that teachers show favoritism. I know me and him talked about this right before the meeting too, when he was explaining his answers, that, you know, in classes sometimes doesn't always feel like he's a part of the class. I know we all talked about as a group too, that when black stuff comes up and you're a speck of black person in that classroom, kind of stealing that from you, if you want to elaborate, and then we'll get to the question, that you know, you're always looked at like, ooh, he must know the answer because he's black. No, I might not. They don't teach me this stuff. My mom might have talked to me about it, but it doesn't count. Antoine, you want to add to that?
In class sometimes, like, we learn about, like, black history, and, like, everybody just, like, be like, I'm probably one of the only black persons in class, so they just, like, look around. Like, Antoine, you finna answer the question. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know the question. I don't know the answer. Like,
right. So, you had a question? So trying to gain a better understanding of the idea you brought up, Ali, about favoritism. Like, how do you feel like that it's being done because you're a black student? Does that make sense? Like in the class, they're showing favoritism to the other non, or.
I'll say towards students, like other students showing favoritism, and because I've been here for like a few years, a while, so that's like I seen like favoritism for school.
From the teachers,
from teachers to the students. So.
I think part of it is, and they do a nice job, I think, at the schools here in La Crosse. But when you are one of few, that also can make you feel like that, right? When you are one black student in a white class and all white students, they're gonna feel like they're being called on more. Maybe you have a good answer, or you have something to say, but it's not being acknowledged sometimes or talked about, or you feel like you raise your hand more and you don't get called on, right? I know that's happened to multiple students here.
Well, like Ali said, like I'm from Chicago, Illinois too. So like when I first came here, like in Chicago, like it's normal to like see a lot of like black students or like black people or like black teachers. Like everybody in Chicago is like where I'm from is like mostly black. But then when I got here, it was just like everything was like white this, white that. Like walking into the store and getting followed, like that's never happened to me till I came here. Like when I came here, like somebody followed me in the store like I was about to steal something, like stuff like that.
So yeah, so he said another challenge that happens in this community, right? Not even in the school, is that when you're black and you walk in the store, you get viewed at a little different. Not that everybody does it, but there's other cases that cause that to be something that is negative, right? When I walk through the store and the same person walks to the store, same age as me, and I'm with a friend, I know some of the students said, me and Antoine talked about this, and he's getting looked at, but the friend ain't. Or you go to the self-checkout and all of a sudden that person was roaming around and they come back. And it might not be because of that, but but the fact that we think that or feel that way, or that these students feel like that is a negative thing.
I feel like some challenges that we have to face, like some like white people can like do certain things in like school, and then as soon as like we do something like that, the teacher's like all up on us, like in like the principal or somebody on us or something like that.
Yeah, and this is what I deal with every day with middle schoolers, right? What Nick said. That students are feeling, and whether it's right or wrong or true or false, they're feeling like that sometimes. Because they're the black student, they can do the same thing as another student and then get talked to about it, but the other student, nothing happened. I'm dealing with that right now at one of our middle schools right now, well, all of our middle schools, because a lot of the students can be like that. And I know sometimes I'm there, so I was there, I witnessed it, you're not telling the truth, stop lying. I witnessed the actions. But I know a lot of times their thoughts are still valid, and I still will approach that situation the right way because that's how they feel. Next question real quick. What can adults do to make things better, right? Because we don't just talk about the problems, talk about the issues, and talk about the challenges without talking about what can we do as the adults in their life, whether white, black, or indifferent, that we are trying to do things better to help them out. Naziah?
So to me, it's kind of like adults should be like more approachable or like understanding with like the situation and more supportive on the situation, because there's a lot of times when there's times that I need to go to an adult, but it's like I don't because I don't want to be judged.
Good, thank you.
I would just like say like teachers like try to be more educated on like some topics. So then, like, students just don't, like, look at us and, like, expect us to know about the topic.
Good, thank you. Better education.
Well, I'll say, well, it's not mostly happening, like, in Central School District, but, like, other schools, I was, like, teachers, like, welcoming, like, feeling more welcome towards the black students and things of that nature.
I just said like treating everybody fairly and like looking at both sides of it. Like I feel like sometimes like some people they like just like lopsided, like they're just one side of the thing. Like they're not like seeing both sides. They're just like always one side. So like it's not like very equal.
Yep, I like the word you used first, and I say fair, right? Treat everybody fairly, right? Because we know there's not going to be equal. We're not going to reach that. That's too hard of a goal to reach equality, full equality. It's just not going to happen. Because we've built that hole so bad that it's not going to happen. But we can be fair to people. without being equal and everything being on the same playing field. You can't be equal if you're not playing with the same deck of cards, right? It just can't happen. But fairness is a little different. Okay. Next question: what barriers do students of color face when it comes to higher education?
I would say like accessibility, making it easier to get a higher education or a degree and cheaper.
I'll say financing.
Financing, money.
Yeah, I'll say financing too. Like, yeah, no, because like I'll have to like I have to like let the board, but like yeah, like more like money wise. Like I feel like sometimes like I don't want to put this in a bad way, but like most white people like they come from like somewhere where they already have money. Like where black people like you start like wherever you start at, that's just how you start. You start at zero. Like you don't have nothing to like, so you're just trying to build money to get to college and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we talked about this before. We know that all people don't come from money. I live with folks that were white, a couple white folks in my community, the couple that were there. They were growing up the same way we did, right? They were growing up in poverty. But when we look at it as a black person growing up in America, we have that viewpoint that every white person comes from something or comes from something better than what we come from. And I know that's what our nation has built up inside of us to believe. It's not always true, because we know that people growing up in rural areas, especially in farming communities, stuff like that, are struggling. But as black folks, because we've been, put down a little bit, we just feel like you still have a better chance to make it than I do. You still have a better opportunity to go to college and get accepted than we do.
Wait, I got like the same question. Another thing is just like most schools, like when you see somebody black, like most of the times, like they're like an athlete. It's easier for you to go into a college and be an athlete because like they like give out 4 rides just because like you're good at something. But like if you're like a regular black student, like on campus, you don't get treated as fair as like somebody else who's a black athlete just because they're an athlete on a full scholarship or something like that.
Good, thank you. Yep, black athletes, obviously, big topics of conversation. Nazaya, I want you to just speak to this real quick, and then I'm gonna get to that positive thing, and then we're gonna get out of here. I know my man, Mr. Knutson, is ready to fired up, ready to go. Love you, Mr. Knutson. I had him as a teacher, one of my favorite teachers at Viterbo, right there. Good dude. Nazaya, how can the rise of mental health issues, how is it affecting our students of color? What can we do?
To me, it's like as more mental health issues rise, there's less resources or people to go to inside of the school district. Like there's only 3 counselors at my school, and my school has a lot of students, and it's like you have to make an appointment with your counselor. So it's very hard to talk to the people that are supposed to be there for you to talk to.
Yeah, that's just something that as we increase numbers, we need more people to want to get involved and help out. We need more programs like that, and maybe they should pay you more to do those things because we know they're getting needed more. I love doctors. You're awesome. You're amazing people, but we need to pay those people that are direct in contact with these people so they can become doctors and they can help our nation so we're good to go. Ms. Knutson, you had something?
On the topic you were talking about earlier, maybe relationships based on color.
Yeah.
A student came into my office this fall. She had been in a class with me a couple years ago, U.S. history, and there was a depiction in the textbook of a Nazi with sunglasses on, and then there was something particular reflected in the sunglasses. It was about how this society would become the leader of the free world after World War II. And the student was sitting next to me at the time, 2 years ago, and so I just asked her what was in the sunglasses. And this fall, she said to me, I've been thinking about what you did to me 2 years ago, asking me rather than anyone else in the class what was reflected in those glasses. And I was frankly floored. She was sitting next to me, and I hadn't thought about it, but I had to acknowledge it was just a thoughtless question on my part. And fortunately, that student really has stuck with me, and we built up a bit of a, professorial kind of student relationship. But it made me really think about how thoughtless I can be about these sensitive. I need to think of myself as engaging in the classroom with all students, but particularly, of course, students of color, because it just hadn't dawned on me that I was putting her in a tough spot.
Yeah, I think that happens. And I think most people, especially good people, don't even realize that they're doing it, right? Or that you just do it. It's just somewhat natural, right? That you look at this student when a certain thing pops up or a certain question or topic pops up, and it's not like, oh, I'm gonna ask her because she's black. Oh, I'm gonna ask him because he's Asian, right? Or I'm gonna ask this student because he's Latinx and it's a situation that has to do with that, right? Or Jewish or whatever, and we're dealing with the Holocaust or whatever, or a situation with Nazi Germany, right? We don't even think it. Good people don't, right? And we just do it. But the fact that you recognize it after and can rectify the situation because you understand that student might have felt some type of way is important, right? To that bond, to that relationship, okay, to help us grow more, right? That you recognize it, because some people don't recognize it and they do it all the time and all the time and all the time, and it goes unsaid, and then students are feeling like this, right? They're feeling like, why are you calling on me every time we talk about this? I don't know nothing about that, like Antoine said. Well, let's finish off on a positive note. I know Rahad is ready to get me up out of here. She's ready to boot me up off the stage. But on a positive note, what is something positive in our community that is happening for students of color and in particular that is helping you become more successful? Nick.
I feel like we have like more groups that we can like go to and like more organizations, and I feel like just being together with each other like helps us be more successful because like we can like relate on a lot of things.
Good. Anybody else want to share? Nope. So, yeah? No? Okay. So more groups that Nick said. We have I run a program through B.L.A.C.K. that's called Ujima. A lot of the students they go through some mental health training, some leadership and character building training. They then become mentors to elementary schools, specifically that identify as black. And so because we can't get educators to do it, we thought it'd be a good program to have some of our great kids get out there and get incentives for getting into our schools. We have Hope Restores and places like Good Fight that are helping students become more successful out there in our nation. I want to say I appreciate y'all. Not to cut me short, I had a nice little poem at the end, but it was beautiful. I'll share it. It'll be out there, right, on the video. You should take a look at it. It's from a faculty member at the University of Michigan, and it's just a nice little poem. But I want to say I appreciate you. I hope that we can do better moving forward as a nation, because we know that this group and generation needs it more than ever. Right? They're dealing with some tough times, as if it hasn't happened before, but it's a new tough time, right? And every time we experience these type of situations or times, we must do better. Mm-hmm. If you don't leave with anything else, use that little simple couple words: do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Q. I want to give an opportunity. I want to recognize we have our panelists, our students here with us. So I'm going to open it up for 1 or 2 questions max. If you have any questions that you really want to know from our student guests here, if you did not get your answer from the questions here, I'm just going to give you that opportunity, and then we can close it up with the poem. But feel free to ask anything you want. Don't be shy. And I'm going to repeat the question after you just so it can bounce back in the live stream. So go ahead. So we got a question. Has it gotten any better or worse?
Well, I feel like there's no, it hasn't been really a change. It's just the same, how when you're in our position, I feel like it's the same. But if you're an athlete, I feel like you get treated differently. Sometimes, most of the time, they don't see the color. Some people might, but most times they don't, because especially if you're a popular athlete or
I think that there's not much of a difference being made. I just think that it's different people that are coming in.
I'm old, so I'm going to say Well, obviously, they're more meaningful to me. I think it's gotten better since when I was here. I was here in 1995, 96, 97, because and I want to hit on what you said, because there are more people that are invested in doing better right now, it's gotten better since when I was here. Now, their experience is different than mine because they're here for this time frame, and then it's shorter. So, but over the years, it's gotten a lot better. Okay.
Okay, we got a question about students interacting with other students, not authorities.
I feel like most students at our school are like cool, like they're all cool to talk to, but like it's like some students in some classes, like when they bring it up, like they like say dumb things like that they know is just like dumb to say in class, especially when it's like somebody like me around. Like one day in class, like earlier in the year, somebody said something about how the Confederate flag isn't bad and like it shouldn't like make us like feel worried or scared or something like that, and like it was just something dumb to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I had a similar experience to that where there was like, we were talking about stereotypes of people, and then there was one that we had to like do a political cartoon about, and this white student said something extremely racist, and then the student teacher was like, well, that's not fair to say because it'd be wrong if she were to say like all white students are school shooters or something like that, and then he was very offended, but it was okay in his mind when it was about black people, so yeah.
You want my opinion still too? Antoine cut me off. But I would say that there are less pockets of people than there used to be. It is a lot more inclusive than when I was at the schools in this area, that you see more kids of multiple cultures hanging out together, where when I was at Central, it was like, here are the black students, here's the white students, here's the Asian students. There'd be some mixture in there if you played sports and stuff, but it's a lot more inclusive now than it was before. So we're getting better. We got a lot of work to do though. Still got to do better.
Great, thank you all for the questions. Q, I'm going to ask our attendees to take a picture, if they want to, of the title of the poem and view it later. I would encourage you very much to consider what Q said. He asked you to listen to this poem, so please go ahead, take a picture, write it down, listen to the poem at your leisure after this session. But for now, we're going to give an applause to our guest speakers for Q and the students that have attended with us today. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. We still have our next session. We're going to give you 2-3 minutes to take a break.